joined live in the studio by Dorcas Gwata, an NHS nurse who's worked here in London and all across Africa and is a keen follower of all matters affecting the continent. Dorcas, we'll start with US today, and of course the picture here and the main story is focusing on Denmark and the killing of the gunman who attacked two different locations over the weekend, a cafe and then a synagogue.
It is, and this story is dominating all the headlines. These Scandinavian countries, which are otherwise quiet, very liberal and very subtle, are coming home to the reality that terrorism is right before us. But this opens up again another debate. This is a copycat act, which is trying to mirror the events in Paris. This young lad was born in Denmark. He's Danish.
I mean, is it fair to say that this is definitely a terrorist attack, given that this man had a history of violence? I mean, is this not? Can we not just say that this is somebody who was mentally unhinged?
And that's unfair. A link that hasn't been explored in terms of research is the link between gangs and terrorism. And I work with young people in gangs here in London. There is a link. What happens here is that if people are emptied already, it's very easy to migrate from gangs into terrorism because people are already excluded. They're already defranchised. They're already involved in criminality. And the link here is that this young lad was already defranchised. We need to find out more. I work in mental health services. There are a lot of people struggling with mental health problems around the world. I don't want the easy link between mental health and terrorism because it's very easy to hide behind mental health. If there isn't a link, we need to do terrorism on its own.
Well, let's talk about the Muslim population in Denmark. I mean, this is bad news for them as well because it stirs up the concerns of Islamophobia and, of course, you know, Muslim Danes who are born into that country will be probably quite concerned about how they're going to be looked at now. And
their safety. And this is unfair to the very good work that goes on around the world that Muslims, ordinary Muslims, contribute. They are part of a wider society and they get to be defined by this one incident. So I really like the stance that Prime Minister Helle Storms took. She was very upfront. She's very sort of grassroots. She's acknowledging that this is a terrorist act, but she's not stigmatizing one group. But she's also saying we need to look at this collectively. I mean, he targeted the Jewish community.
And I just want to mention as well, you know, the man who lost his life, he, in fact, by losing his life, he saved the lives of hundreds of others because that synagogue was packed, wasn't it?
It was, and this is a big event that the Jewish community, which they commemorate the Baishkas, which they call, I hope I pronounce it right. This could potentially have been a huge massacre. Had he gone past that one man, this could have been a huge massacre. We are living in uncertain days and uncertain times around the world, not just in Europe, not just in the West, including Africa. We're absolutely living in certain times.
Well, we're seeing that with Boko Haram, but also this paper is reporting, and we've mentioned here on Arise News, that the German city of Braunschweig, which is in the north, cancelled an event. Should we be dictated to by one-off incidents that happen, as terrible as they are? Should we be dictated to about whether we can hold rallies, whether we can discuss freedom of speech and artistic ways to express ourselves in this modern day?
And it's a really good question, Asha, because to what extent is this affecting our daily lives? I know I cycle around London, and I know that there are a lot more cyclists today since the 7/7 events. People are scared of gatherings.
Well, we don't know whether it's definitely 7/7, but it's also to do with things like congestion charge, getting healthier and cycle lanes. I mean, there is a number of different things.
But to what extent does this change our behaviours, and does it change our sense of safety? This is clearly affecting us. We're all having to live and being aware of where we are. And I think the global threat this is a new reality. This is no longer the days of Al-Qaeda in the caves and, you know, you fish them out. This is very scattered. It's got a new kind of energy, and it's difficult to control.
Isn't the problem, though, more because we live in a digital age, because we're able to communicate and link up with people across the world in a matter of seconds? And if you you are somebody who has been ostracised in society and feel neglected and you're a loner, you are able to tap into something and hide behind the door of your bedroom.
Absolutely. And if you're an ISS fighter in the depths of Syria, you can control that young lad who's 17, 18 years old with no job, no future, in the 17th floor of a council estate. So this is the world we're living in. And I think we've got a huge new challenge, which needs new level of intelligence, new level interventions, and it needs to be coordinated and globalized.
I mean, it's difficult to police the internet. We could talk for hours on this subject. Let's quickly move on to the China Daily. The story there is about police to receive better pay benefits. More than 2 million officers are expected to get more money because of the pressure and risks of their job.
And I welcome it. I work with police, and I think sometimes we don't acknowledge the good work that they are doing. They are at huge risk of fatality and death. There is work to be done, obviously, in terms of regulating and coordinating police officers. But this goes a long way to acknowledge the risk that they pose and the risk that they're under. I absolutely welcome that. On the back of that, though, we must absolutely mention that the protests that have been happening around China have been hugely scrutinized in terms of how they've been managed and regulated. Are police too violent? Are they reaction? Are they, how have they managed it?
The orders, though, come from above, don't they?
Great, but this is a great opportunity for us to sit down and say, well, here's a pay rise, but actually here are the issues that we need to discuss about. And I think we need to seize that opportunity.
I think China is probably not necessarily willing to go into a discussion about what is right and what is wrong. We saw that with the Hong Kong protests, didn't we? They wouldn't be dictated to, even though there were demonstrations that lasted for several months. Let's move on to The Age. This is the Australia paper. The PM talks tough on security. So Tony Abbott once again in the headlines about national security.
He is, and he's upping his game. I mean, he shoots from the hip, this guy. He's hugely unpopular at the moment for various reasons around Australia. But he's making a huge assumption here that migrants come in and cause harm to Australia. And they
don't have the best human rights record when it comes to immigration.
Absolutely not least of their own communities within Aboriginal communities. So there are huge issues going on in Australia. But he doesn't, the link between migration and terrorism isn't necessary. These will be Australian-born people who pose risks to his country.
Dorcas, thank you very much for your comments today.